Diocletian was the commander of the imperial bodyguard, acclaimed by the army after the death of Numerian, and proceeded to defeat Numerian's brother Carinus in battle. Diocletian's reign brought an end to the crisis of the 3rd century, but would divide the empire into the Tetrarchy, allowing the empire to be administered by his co-emperors and junior co-emperors, which had the title of Caesar. This would fail to remain, as competing dynastic claims of Maxentius and Constantine would bring Rome to civil war. Diocletian secured the empire's borders and purged it of all threats to his power. He would defeat Sarmatians, Carpi, Alemanni, Sassanids, and usurpers in Egypt. He established new administrative centers in Nicomedia, Mediolanum, Sirmium, and Trevorum, closer to the empire's frontiers than the traditional capital at Rome. The Diocletianic persecution from 303 to 312, the empire's last, largest, and bloodiest official persecution of Catholicism, failed to eliminate Catholicism in the empire. Weakened by illness, Diocletian left the imperial office on the 1st of May 305, becoming the first Roman emperor to abdicate the position voluntarily. He lived out his retirement in his palace on the Dalmatian coast, tending to his vegetable gardens. His palace eventually became the core of the modern-day city of Split in Croatia. Maximian was elevated by Diocletian and ruled the western provinces. Maximian would see many victories and defeats from the beginning of his reign as Western Emperor to his deification several years after his suicide by Constantine's request. While living in Trier, he and Diocletian would launch a campaign deep into Alemannic territory in 288. Seeking to recapture Britain and northwestern Gaul, which had succeeded, he would have Constantius go on campaign while he secured the Rhine. In 298, he would combat piracy in Hispania and Berber raids in Mauritania, after which he would settle in Italy until in 305. At Diocletian's behest, abdicate to Constantius and retire to southern Italy. In 306, he would claim the title of Augustus again and aid his son Maxentius in taking over Italy, though the following year he would flee to the court of Constantine, the son of Constantius. In 308, he would be forced by Diocletian and Galerius to renounce his claims to the throne, but he would seek to seize the throne once more in early 310 from Constantine, but fail, leading to his suicide. Constantius I was Maximian's relation by marriage, elevated to Caesar in 293 by Diocletian, succeeded as Western Augustus upon Maximian's abdication. Of humble origin, Constantius had a distinguished military career and rose to the top ranks of the army. Around 289, he set aside Helena, Constantine's mother, to marry a daughter of Emperor Maximian, and in 293 was added to the imperial college by Maximian's colleague Diocletian. Assigned to rule Gaul, Constantius defeated the usurper Carausius there and his successor Electus in Britain, and campaigned extensively along the Rhine frontier, defeating the Alemanni and Franks. When the Diocletianic persecution was announced in 303, Constantius ordered the demolition of churches, but did not actively hunt down Christians in his domain. Upon becoming senior emperor in May 305, Constantius launched a successful punitive campaign against the Picts beyond the Antonine Wall. He died suddenly at Iberacum in July the following year. After Constantius's death, the army, perhaps at his own instigation, immediately acclaimed his son Constantine as emperor. This act contributed to the collapse of the Diocletianic Tetrarchy, sparking a series of civil wars which only ended when Constantine finally united the whole Roman Empire under his rule in 324. His descendants, the Constantinian dynasty, ruled the empire until the death of his grandson Julian the Apostate in 363. Galerius was elevated to Caesar in 293 by Diocletian, succeeded as Eastern Augustus upon Diocletian's abdication. He was of Dacian blood. During his reign, he campaigned, aided by Diocletian, against the Sasanian Empire, sacking their capital Ctesiphon in 299. He also campaigned across the Danube against the Carpi, defeating them in 297 and 300. Although he was a staunch opponent of the followers of the Christ, Galerius ended the Diocletianic persecution when he issued an edict of toleration in Serdica in 311. His war against the Persian invasion would be a resounding success, where he would capture the wife, concubines, and children of the Persian king and keep them hostage in Antioch their entire lives. As Augustus, he would have a falling out with the other emperors, eventually leading to 7 different men administrating the empire. Galerius, east; Maximinus II, east; Licinius, middle; Constantine I, west; Maximian, west; Maxentius, Italy; and Domitius Alexander, Africa. The last years of Galerius saw him relinquishing his aspirations towards being the supreme ruler of the empire, though he managed to retain the position of first among equals. He spent the remainder of his years enjoying himself, but according to both Eusebius and Lactantius, he would suffer from possibly a bowel cancer, gangrene, or Fournier gangrene. Severus II was elevated to Caesar in 305 by Maximian, promoted to Western Augustus by Galerius upon Constantius I's death. After failing to besiege Rome, he fled to Ravenna. It is thought that he was killed there or executed near Rome. On the death of Constantius I in Britain in the summer of 306, Severus was promoted to Augustus by Galerius. This was done as a reaction to the acclamation of Constantine I, Constantius's son, by his own soldiers at York as Augustus. Lactantius reports that Galerius had done this to promote the older man to the higher office, while accepting the imperial symbols of Constantine and bestowing upon him the rank of Caesar. When Maxentius, the son of the retired Emperor Maximian, revolted at Rome, Galerius sent Severus to suppress the rebellion. Severus moved towards Rome from his capital, Mediolanum, at the head of an army previously commanded by Maximian. The army would abandon him once the siege of Rome began, leaving Severus captured and soon led to his death. Severus was survived by his son Flavius Severianus. Maximinus II was the nephew of Galerius, elevated to Caesar by Diocletian in 305 and acclaimed as Augustus by his troops in 310. A committed pagan, he engaged in one of the last persecutions of Christians before issuing an edict of tolerance near his death. He was born in the Roman Illyria region to the sister of Emperor Galerius, near their family lands around Felix Romuliana in Dacia Ripensis, a rural area then also in the former Danubian region of Moesia, now modern eastern Serbia. He rose to high distinction after joining the army. In 305, his maternal uncle Galerius became the Eastern Augustus and adopted Maximinus, raising him to the rank of Caesar, that is, the junior Eastern ruler, and granting him the government of Syria and Egypt. During the civil war, he would lose the Battle of Zyralim against Licinius, flee, and eventually reach Tarsus, where he would die. Eusebius states that Maximinus was consumed by avarice and superstition, often attempting to commit adultery. Licinius was elevated by Galerius to replace Severus in opposition to Maxentius. He defeated Maximinus Daza in a civil war to become sole emperor of the East in 313. He was of Dacian blood. For most of his reign, he was the colleague and rival of Constantine I, with whom he co-authored the Edict of Milan in 313 that granted official toleration to Christians in the Roman Empire. Often at war with the Persians, who persisted on launching and failing to succeed in invading. As time would go on, though, he would seek to defeat the Western Emperor. He was finally defeated at the Battle of Chrysopolis in 324 and was later executed by hanging on the orders of Constantine I, who had accused him of conspiring to raise troops among the Goths. Licinius is said to have likely been a follower of Christ during his early life and reign, seeing that he would handle church affairs in the same way as Constantine, affixed signs of Christ on army standards, and was married to a devout believer. He appears to have turned away from Christ when he was in direct opposition to Constantine. On his death, his legacy would go down in infamy, his statues toppled and his edicts abolished.